Namaskar and welcome to Sunset Television. I am Vishal Dahiya and you're watching our show Perspective, where we bring you detailed analysis of key national and international issues. Today we're going to talk about Civil Services Day. Now, Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar has called upon the civil servants to facilitate uniformity in administration across the union and the states so that federalism blossoms into cooperative federalism. Inaugurating the 16th Civil Service Day in New Delhi on Thursday, Vice President said, "Our democracy is the most functional and vibrant at all levels. Our level of freedom of expression is next to none, and there is no tangible reflection of enforced silence." Prime Minister Narendra Modi also addressed the Civil Services Day event on Friday and said, "The deficiencies in our system have now been converted into efficiencies, and this efficiency is helping us tackle numerous policy-related problems." Every year, 21st of April is commemorated as Civil Services Day as an opportunity for civil officials to recommit themselves to the cause of citizens and renew their vows to public service and work excellence. This year's theme of Civil Service Day is Viksit Bharat, empowering citizens and reaching the last mile. So, in the recent past, the government has also brought several measures such as Mission Karmyogi, the Assistant Secretary Program, and lateral entry of professionals at senior levels in the government to improve the functioning of civil services in order to enable them to serve the people of the country more beneficially. So today we'll take a closer look at Indian civil services, the journey, the kind of changes which have been made along the way, and furthermore, kind of reforms, if at all any are required. And we will have a panel of expert panel as well to discuss the same. But before that, let's listen in to what the Vice President and the Prime Minister had to say at the Civil Services Day.
We are the largest and mother of democracy. Our democracy is most functional and vibrant at all levels. The village, the municipalities, the states, and the center. Friends, you will come to know, in no constitution of any other country, you will find a provision for panchayat. We have it in our Part 9 of the Constitution. Municipalities, Part 9, Capital A of the Constitution. And of course, state and parliament. So this kind of hierarchical democratic mechanism, you don't have anywhere else in the world. I cannot be party to anyone who goes in the country or outside to belittle your achievements, to run down your accomplishments, to the most effective contribution you have made in changing lives of the people. I cannot be party to it. In and out, some of these people engage in misadventure to demean, decry, taint, and tarnish our democracy, constitutional values, and hard-working people in the government, the civil service. It is baffling why some amongst us enjoyably resort to self-goals when it comes to economic growth, policy making, and implementation.
देश को आजादी के इस अमृत काल तक लाने में उन अधिकारियों की बड़ी भूमिका रही जो 15, 20, 25 साल पहले इस सेवा में आए। अब आजादी के इस अमृत काल में उन युवा अधिकारियों की भूमिका सबसे बड़ी है जो अगले 15, 20, 25 साल इस सेवा में रहने वाले हैं। इसलिए मैं आज भारत के हर सिविल सेवा अधिकारी से यही कहूंगा कि आप बहुत भाग्यशाली हैं। आपको इस कालखंड में देश की सेवा करने का मौका मिला है। आजादी के अमृत काल में देश के स्वाधीनता सेनानियों के सपनों को पूरा करने का दायित्व हम सभी पर है। हमारे पास समय कम है, लेकिन सामर्थ्य भरपूर है।
So there it is. We heard both the Prime Minister and the Vice President of India addressing the Civil Services Day event, pointing out various aspects. We'll bring those aspects into the discussion as well. But let me first introduce our panelists to you. Mr. Vinendra Gupta is here with us, former ambassador, served a long career in Indian Foreign Services. We also have with us Mr. Surendranath Tripathi, Director General of IIPA, joining us, and Ms. Varnali Deka is also joining us, an IS officer, DC of Kokrachhar district in Assam. Welcome to you as well, Ms. Deka. Let me first begin with you, Mr. Gupta, and I have almost the same question, but I presume that both of you would have more value to add. That is the journey. Let's first begin with the journey of Indian civil services. From where it began, from where it has reached now. How would you assess that journey?
Well, first of all, I'd like to greet all the entire fraternity of civil services. And I think they've done remarkable amount of contribution to the country's development. In taking the country, when we became independent, we were a very poor and, at the bottom of the heap, as it were, because the colonialism had completely emaciated us. They had sucked out the entire wealth from the country. And we had a challenging task to build a nation to meet with the aspirations of people and the needs of people. And I think apart from the political leadership which helped guide the nation, the main task of running the administration, implementing the policies, and even in terms of helping develop policies, devolves on the civil service. And I think civil service has acquitted itself quite well. But having said that, now that we've come to 75 years of our independence, the Prime Minister said that we are entering the Amrit Kal, where the challenge is to take our nation, the vision that he has set forward, is to take the country on the path of a developed nation.
A new era.
Yes. Now, when you look at that, in these challenging times, we would need people at the hem of our administration, people with domain knowledge, people with a specialized knowledge, because we become a very competitive world. We are no longer a simplistic world that we were 50, 60 years ago. Today, you need domain knowledge, you need specialists. And I think this thing about people moving from civil aviation to social welfare, to economic policy, to irrigation, that, in my opinion, will not work. So I think it is understood and generally agreed that we need to reform the civil service.
That is why perhaps one of those reforms which perhaps, we'll come to that on later in the show as well. But this aspect of lateral entry, bringing in more experts from the field as well. But before we move there, Mr. Tripathi, in your views, this journey and the evolution of the service as well, of the civil services also, with the changing times, we have seen many changes, and most of them in the recent past also, the way the entire civil services works, and also the kind of expectations there, and also the kind of expertise, as Mr. Gupta was pointing out, is required.
In fact, we are proud that Indian civil service has been merit-based from day one. We were merit-based even today. What has been added is technology-based. What has been added is the political willpower behind the success, and what has been added is data-driven government. As sir was saying that in 1947, when we became independent, we needed direction for everything. We needed a planned process to tell what to do. We needed a direction what to do and how to do. Even industry were asked to how many scooter to produce and how many not to produce. Complete license permit Raj. But maybe that was necessary at that point of time. But emphasis was on thinking small but managing shortage, managing it efficiently. Today we have gone a 360-degree shift. You must have heard the Honorable Prime Minister saying that we should do saturation. Saturation means it is development for all, not for few, are selected or vulnerable, this and that. Anyone who needs, give it to him. Saturation type of policy planning requires a different mindset change, from fixed mindset to growth mindset. Or as somebody was telling yesterday in the same conference, that we should learn to have, instead of having a point of view, we should have an economic point of view.
Economic.
How it is doable, whether it is doable, if at all it is doable, how the public policy execution and implementation can be supervised by civil servants. Yes, you have rightly said we need expertise, but expertise can be hired, not the implementation and execution. Ultimately, the responsibility of the government will remain on the government. We can't outsource thinking. Yes, we can outsource ideas which we can implement. So therefore, the role of expert at certain level, but execution deficit need to be met faster. In fact, you were just quoting the speech of Honorable Vice President of India, who also said that we have changed a lot of things in Anti-Corruption Act. In fact, Article 17, Section 17A, capital A, he was highlighting that corruption, both bribe giver and others have been taken to task. So this is the time for a bureaucrat to not only perform, rather transform the delivery and especially the public service delivery.
Okay, okay. That seemingly is the key aspect there. Not only perform, but transform the way that performance has to be delivered also. Coming to the reforms part, Ambassador Gupta and Mr. Tripathi as well, both of you are referring to that issue. But talking about what has been done in the past, few years, in the recent years, be it Mission Karam Yogi or be it, the lateral entry, as I was pointing out earlier. So how would you assess those reformist changes as far as the civil service is concerned? Because it's a pivotal point in the entire development cycle of the country.
Well, reform is a work in progress. So I do acknowledge that occasionally, from time to time, several steps have been taken, and those were good steps. For instance, lateral entry. I have always supported the idea of lateral entry, whether it is in the general realm of civil service or even in the foreign ministry. Although, mind you, there are a lot of people belonging to civil service, including my own service, who are very much opposed to the idea of lateral entry because they think that will affect the career progression of people in the service. But we have to always put the interests of the nation first. Now, what has happened is that when you look at how we gained independence, and at that time the government was obsessed with the idea of continuing the continuation, not making too many waves. So I think we carried on with the administration, civil service structure, which was very much similar, which was very much the same as during the colonial administration.
Okay.
So I think we have to undertake a careful examination and drive out all remaining vestiges, all remaining legacy of the colonial administration, because not a colonial administration. Today, we have to provide an administration which is sensitive, which is inclusive, because colonial administration was never inclusive. The only one-line mandate given to the colonial administration was to secure the interests of the British government. Today, we cannot have that kind of mindset. The civil servant over there, he has to contend with the political leadership. The challenge is to remain objective. I mean, one of the things that was visualized, that you create, why was it the steel frame? That a steel frame would not be even bent by the political dictates. That the civil servant was provided the kind of security. You entered the civil service, the premier civil service, particularly IAS, foreign service, and no harm would come to you if you remain. The idea was to help you in remaining objective.
Okay.
And to work for the national interest. And I think those ideas have to be stressed once again. And government, I think, has to very seriously put its mind. These halfway measures, little bit of here and there would not. A thorough reform is required.
Okay, okay. Ms. Varnali Deka is again with us. Ms. Deka, I asked you a question earlier. This is about how do you, see the path or plan to achieve what Prime Minister was referring to in terms of, goals in Amrit Kal for officers like yourself who have another 15-20 years of service to contribute?
Before I speak on that, I would just like to wish all my seniors, my fraternity and the entire nation a very happy Civil Services Day. And basically, this is a very interesting question, and this is what all of us in the service, people who have newly joined the service, people who have another 15, 20, 25, 30 years left, all of us in the service really need to think and ask ourselves this question. And I have seen a basic change in the orientation of our service in the service has always been service oriented. I have always seen all my seniors being very service oriented. But now, along with being service oriented, it is performance oriented, efficacy oriented. More of achieving results. There is more of quantification. There is more of, since it is a saturation approach, how do we saturate our targets? And I would say that the kind of training that we are getting from the academy, the kind of training the newer batches are getting, this is all oriented towards that vision, towards that thinking. And like Honorable Prime Minister was saying today, for the nation to succeed, all of us also have to inculcate that mindset. And I think today on Civil Services Day, I am fairly confident that people of my level of seniority, people of, who have those many years of service ahead, we are all away in this process of achieving that mindset and achieving those levels of performance which will take our nation to be the best in the world.
Okay, fair enough. Those aspects, which Ms. Tekar was referring to, I'd like to bring you in, Mr. Tripathi. Some of these are the aspects which are dealt with in schemes like Mission Karam Yogi, make the service more result-oriented, not only just service-oriented, transformation of the work culture as you were earlier referring. So have these reforms, how have these reforms worked, which have been brought in the recent past?
See, as sir was telling that from colonial history to developmental model, we have taken a leap forward. It has been a leap of faith. For the first time, we are going to trust citizen than the government. Take the case of attestation. Take the case of evaluation of interview. Take the case of SSC examination in being held in 15 languages. Take many such reform where government is going to trust its citizen, even surrender income tax, many other declaration. So all these means that a tectonic shift, instead of being rule of law, therefore rule is supreme, we are going to believe in citizen that citizens' faith is supreme. We have to preserve that. When we in IAS, we are trained to do that. We work with public representative right from lineman to chairman. When we are in the service, from ward member to up to a level of union minister, we are trained to handle the aspiration of people through public representative, which is a major shift how to work with them. Second shift is that use of technology, which was earlier not available, but now it is available. India is one such case where the lot of digital public infrastructure has come from the government, not from big tech like Google's, Microsoft's and others. Here the Aadhaar you take UPI, you take many such instances. Many of them were rewarded also. CoWIN was rewarded today. So all these things, that means government is proactively trying to solve the problem of citizen using reform and improving the performance. And you have rightly said transformation. What is transformation? When we start trusting citizen, Jan Bhagidari, then many things happen. You have seen in Swachhata, we have seen in Swasth Bharat, we have seen in COVID times. So all these things speak that, as Honorable Prime Minister was saying, instead of letting it happen, making it happen should be the target of bureaucracy.
Okay.
Viksit Bharat will not come with only Swasth Bharat and Swachh Bharat and Shikshit Bharat. It will also come when bureaucracy also does its job 24/7, having faith in Jan Bhagidari.
Okay.
So this is the shift that government is aiming at.
Okay. Now that we're talking about, and Mr. Gupta, I'd like to bring you in here. We're talking about, the expectations from the civil servants, or the kind of changes which have to be brought in the way of the civil services work or the working culture, or what needs to be achieved as well. This doesn't it? This also takes back us to the first step of this process, that is the selection of civil servants as well, because we're talking about technology, we're talking about domain expert as well. So what kind of changes would you suggest, rather, comparing it with the days when you got selected as a civil servant, or Mr. Tripathi also, and the kind of changes which are required now, so that we tune the system accordingly?
Vishal, is a very good question. Actually, if you look at it, the examination system, it has, with little bit of reforms here and there, prelims have been added, but very largely the structure of the main exam remains exactly the same it was 75 years ago. It hasn't undergone much change. And it has become very, very, you have to practice, you have to prepare for it, you have to work for the exam. There are people that I know who work for preparing for the exam for 4 years, 5 years. It's become an industry. And look at people who are not able to make it. It's a tremendous waste of resources, and it causes the frustration, avoidable frustration amongst young people. So I think we need to do something about it. And I can tell you from my own experience, when I was appearing for the civil service, and one was trying to get into a career, I took a lot of exams. And I found the exam conducted by the State Bank of India, probationary officers exam, that was the best exam.
Okay.
And I have had an opportunity to look at the examination pattern, and I feel that State Bank of India, now, exam even now remains the best. Now, it should be designed to select the best candidates without having to force them to kind of leave everything aside and prepare for the exam for 2 years or 1 year and that kind of thing. That will skew the results.
Okay.
Because you want to select the best candidates who would be part of the team. Because in government you don't need Einsteins. You need members of the team. You need people who can work as members of the team, who can take orders and who can take rejection also. So there are a lot of these challenges which are required.
Okay, contribution there as well. Mr. Tripathi, your views on that, the entire system which we are talking about. We can't just, simply focus on, okay, fine, we have a bunch of civil servants, now this is what is expected of them. But starting the process of, looking at it from the beginning of the entire process as well, as Mr. Gupta is saying.
You see, government has its own constraints and maybe perhaps view for social inclusion. I'm not against it, but I am certainly in favor of it. Recruitment should be confined to a couple of chances for everyone, limited number of chances for everyone, so that we get the selection process over at the age of 25 to 28, so that they are trainable and then we can groom them the way government wants them to fit in.
Okay.
If you enter the civil service at age of 35, 36 or 38, then perhaps you are not trainable maybe you have more experience, become worldly wise, therefore you start being slightly unfit in the system. And even government thinks that no point in working with him, he is not going to be there with us for 30 or 40 years.
Okay.
So there is a trade-off between the two.
There's a trade-off. There is a need for change there as well. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Now, last few minutes there, I'd like to bring in Ms. Dekha also. Ms. Dekha, your concluding comments here as to what is it that needs to be reformed or changed from here onwards when we are talking about not only the civil servants, but also the civil services?
I would say I am, too junior in the service to comment on broadly this aspect. But my experience from the field, because mostly I have been a field level officer for the past 16 years, is that the entire, human resources, because we as Gupta service saying, we are all team players. We need a team that delivers. So broadly, the IS or the IPS, these are small, we are a small core of personnel. But along with that, the team building activity needs to be done. And today, too, Honorable Prime Minister Sir was talking about Mission Karm Yogi. So these are all steps that are helping us, that are orienting us in the right direction. So it is in terms of creating those kind of teams right across the board. Perhaps some from the government services, some in coordination with the private sector, with all the various stakeholders, which allows us a broader perspective, allows us more inputs. And secondly, I would like to refer to the Aspirational Districts program, which has, completely brought about a transformation by following a data-driven approach, evidence-based approach. So as they say, what gets measured gets done. So in terms of perhaps deliverables, the performances have to be seen in terms of certain quantifiables along with the qualitative aspects of it. So better monitoring, better result orientation, and a more clear-cut vision end-to-end, along with a team that is able to deliver, a team that is synergistic. And I believe from my experience, what I have been seeing, because I have worked in some of the most backward areas, backward districts of the country, this has been happening, and we are being, constantly we are performing. And initiatives like the Prime Minister's Award, these are again shots in the arm for us, because every year the number of applications are doubling, and this is, very motivating for any of us. This is like the Oscar or the Filmfare of our service, because when one gets recognition at that level.
Okay,
so,
indeed.
This would be my understanding.
Okay, fair enough. Indeed, thank you, Ms. Dekha, out there for sharing your views and inputs. So as Mr. Tripathi and Mr. Gupta also for sharing your inputs, as our expert panelists were pointing out, clearly a remarkable job has been done by the civil servants or civil services So far, there have been challenges. Those challenges have been met, but more challenges in the new era face us. That is Amrit Kal, looking at India as a developed nation, working towards that goal, and that would require few more changes. The government has taken a lot of steps, a lot of measures in the recent past to keep the civil services in tune with the goals which have been set for India as a nation for the next 25 odd years in Amrit Kal. We'll keep a close watch on this and come back again with a different topic. Till then, keep watching Sunset Television. Thank you.